I'm Julie Zenner along with Dennis Anderson, and here's what's coming up on Almanac North.
A leader in Minnesota's health care reform at the state legislature announced he won't be running for re-election in 2014. Representative Tom Huntley is here to talk about his decision and his career in the legislature.
Also tonight, a look at history as we remember a dramatic presidential election 25 years ago that will stir memories.
And we'll have the business headlines and a story that was making news in the Twin Ports a quarter century ago.
It's all coming up next on Almanac North. Hello and welcome to Almanac North. Thanks for watching. Danny, many people are traveling this weekend for the holidays.
And apparently the weather is going to be fairly favorable for us, so travel shouldn't be all that bad.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Nice.
We've had plenty of bad travel weather
we have
in
this
the last
year.
couple of weeks, so
That's
this
right.
is good.
Yeah.
And our guests are standing by, so
Sure.
let's get started.
Okay, thank you very much, Julie, and good evening to all of you. A longtime Duluth lawmaker this week announced he would step down after his current term in office ends. Known for his work on health care legislation and his commitment to the Great Lakes, he will leave some big shoes to fill. Joining us now is Representative Tom Huntley, a DFLer from Duluth. Representative Huntley, great to have you here. Is there any one decision that made you decide not to seek another term?
I just think that, I've been doing this for 22 years.
A long time.
It's a long time, and discussed it for a long time with my wife, Gail. For about a year, we've been talking about this, and I just decided it was time for me to try to do something else.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just wondering, does the decision have anything to do with how polarized things have gotten in politics lately?
Well, I always say that I hate 85% of the job. Unfortunately, I love the other 15%. And if you ever had to sit and listen to 12, 13 hours of debate on the House floor, you'd get pretty frustrated. Mm-hmm. So there's a certain amount of that. And the other thing, I think the biggest issue facing healthcare in the United States is primary care. And in Minnesota, we're going to be short 1,000 primary care docs in 10 years.
Really?
And if we don't switch how we train them, and
Sure.
it's all tied in with the federal rules about how they pay for graduate medical education. And if the rules don't change, we're going to have a huge problem in this country. So that is one thing I'd really like to work on. The other is with the Affordable Care Act, and even if that went away, there's such dramatic changes going on in the healthcare system that the rural parts of our state are not really ready to deal with that, and that's something we got to work on.
You taught for years at the UMD Medical School. Would your greatest accomplishment then, Representative, be in the area of healthcare and healthcare reform?
I would say that certainly, and I also was the chief author of the Freedom to Breathe Act.
That's right.
Which is healthcare. And we have made big changes. Minnesota was kind of dropping back and not being quite the leader we used to be in healthcare reform. And I think that changed in 2007, 2008 when we passed a whole bunch of reviews, reform stuff in healthcare that the rest of the country is now following us.
Mm-hmm. Any regrets as you look back over the years that you've been doing this? Maybe issues you wish you had tackled, or maybe some that you wish you hadn't?
There's all kinds of controversial issues, and sometimes you wish they would just go away because you can't win.
Yeah.
And that is painful, but I don't think I really regret anything that I've
Yeah.
done in the legislature.
What in Tom Huntley's mind still needs to be finished in the year you have left as a state lawmaker?
Last year, and I was very disappointed, we passed a bill that gave a 5% raise to nursing home workers. And that's a very good thing. They've been held down with no raises for maybe 8 years. And unfortunately, we did not do it, and I could not get the same amount of 5% raise for people that work in long-term care facilities, like people that have disabilities and so on. And they do basically the same work as nursing homes. The problem is the nursing homes have a lot more clout because everybody knows and has a relative that's in a nursing home. They understand that. What they don't understand is people with disabilities. Mm-hmm. And when I grew up, people with disabilities were hidden. We didn't even know they existed.
Yeah.
Will that be a top priority for you then in 2014?
I think so. We started, or not we, but the people that represent these agencies, have been working very hard all summer and all fall. And the governor was certainly not very enthusiastic about it last year, but last Saturday he said that at least some of these people need that raise. And I had a meeting Wednesday with Tom Bach, who's the head of the Senate, mm-hmm. and he's feeling pretty much the same way, that we've got to do this. And it's about $60 million a year. As you know, we have about a $850 million surplus. Now, most of that's going to go to tax breaks and probably into the reserve fund, and there won't be a lot of new spending, but we need to do it for these workers. And it results in very poor care. If you have 70% turnover in these facilities, which we have had, they don't know the patients. And all the people in these homes that are there are all individuals. They all have different needs than everybody else. They're not all the same, and if the people that work there don't know them as individuals, they're not going to get good care.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the Affordable Care Act, and the DFL Legislature established MNsure, the state's exchange program for health care. There have been some bumps in terms of the rollout. Are you concerned with the problems that people have been experiencing, and do you think that there might be some action on the part of the legislature related to that?
I think the problems will be fixed before we get into session. And I just had a meeting this morning with a group of legislators that are dealing with MNsure, and the new head of MNsure got appointed yesterday or the day before. Mm-hmm. And yes, there's problems, and they need to be fixed, and they have not done a good job of getting this thing ready to go. We're doing a lot better than the federal one, but there are other states, California and New York, where it's gone very smoothly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you think Minnesota made a good decision in terms of taking on the exchanges on its own?
Well, number one is our exchange negotiated the lowest rates in the country with the health insurance companies of Minnesota. And you go across the river into Wisconsin, they're paying 80% more than we are in Minnesota in the exchange. So we did a good job doing it ourselves, and to be honest, the Commerce Commissioner really leaned on the health insurance companies, and they came in with some cases. He said, we don't like this bid, and so they would redo it.
Sure.
And besides that, we have very good insurance companies in this state.
Tom, in your 11 terms in the state legislature, who was the most progressive governor you worked with? And maybe there's more than one.
I came in after Perpich left.
Okay.
So I've had Carlson, Ventura, Palenti, and Dayton. And obviously Dayton is more progressive. Carlson wasn't that bad, actually. He approved Minnesota Care, which we were the first state
Sure.
that's tried to help low-income working people get health insurance, and he was pretty easy to work with.
If you could become governor for 1 month, what would you do?
Well, I would not go to Costa Rica. But the thing that I think we need to do is take a long-term view of healthcare and figure out how we're going to train the people we need. If we don't have enough primary care physicians and primary care workers, and we have started in Minnesota with healthcare homes to try to coordinate the activities of physicians, nurse practitioners, physicians' assistants, RNs, to have them all work together rather than have this top-down kind of thing. And that is making a big impact nationally. In fact, we're being, just read something last week, there's 7 countries in Europe that are trying to figure out how they're going to do the same thing that Minnesota did with healthcare homes.
So what do you see as your role in that as you leave the legislature and you try to work to improve the situation with rural healthcare?
Number 1 is training the right number of people, and number 2 is helping rural clinics adapt to the change.
As a consultant
As
lobbyist?
a consultant or public employee or hired by somebody, I don't know. I have had a number of people express some interest in doing that. But again, if you look at the rural parts of the state, Essentia is not rural, and they have hospitals in Minnesota, in Duluth, a couple on the range, Brainerd, Detroit Lakes. So they're a big system, and they can make these kinds of changes because they have the infrastructure to do it. But in most of rural Minnesota, the clinics aren't even part of a hospital. And so how are you going to coordinate all these activities is a tough thing in the more rural parts of the state.
Is there someone in the back of your mind who you would like to see take your legislative seat?
Here's the endorsement opportunity.
And are you going to endorse
out of it
Are
because
you going to endorse them tonight?
no, there's at least 3 Democrats running, and they all have strong records, and they all have good union records, and the firefighters that is thinking about it, I've met him, but I really don't know him. The other, Linda Krug and Jennifer Schultz, are both at UMD, and I've had a lot of interaction with both of them, but particularly with Jennifer Schultz because she does healthcare economics. And so I've had a lot of meetings with her over the years, and she's very good, but so is Linda, and so is this firefighter.
And most people, when they enter the legislature, are very optimistic and want to change things, and then eventually they get a little jaded by the process. Do you think being in the legislature all these years has changed you, and if so, for better or worse?
I think what I've learned in the last couple of years is that for me, I need to focus. I can't handle everything. And I always say that, we have good legislators and we have bad ones. We have smart ones, we have dumb ones. We have honest ones, we have crooked ones. The only thing we all have in common is that we're overwhelmed with information, and we just can't keep up with it.
Yeah. As you well know, the Minnesota legislature used to meet every 2 years, and not every year as they do now. Is it necessary to meet every year?
I think they need to meet every year because there's always little fixes we have to do. For instance, in the next biennium, we're going to have a $600 million deficit, and we should have a balanced budget for 4 years, which means we've got to fix it this year. There are minor things that should be done in the short session, and I strongly oppose to taking up huge issues in the short session. We should do that in the long session at the first year of the biennium, and the second short session, we should just fix little things that need to be fixed.
Aside from health care, what's a big issue here in the Northland that needs to be tackled now by the legislature?
Well, I think the most controversial one is the mining issue. And my personal view is the state DNR and EPA are going to have to look at that, and if they approve it, then I'm not opposed.
Any bonding projects on your radar for this year?
There's a lot of bonding projects. One is the North Shore Theater, and for Duluth, there's always we're trying to get money for the sewer systems in Duluth. Is always a big issue, and the Port Authority all over the state needs some money to try to fix up their system.
There's a group lobbying for a transportation bill in the short session. You think that is going to happen, or is that one of those big issues that you don't think should be tackled?
That's a big issue, and we really don't have the money to do it, so you would have to raise taxes, and I mean, I personally think that's pretty unlikely. On the other hand, and I've worked with, I'm working well with this group that I hope will get a 4% raise. Sometimes it takes a couple of years, but if you're putting the heat on, you may not get it done the first year you try, but you often can get it in the second year.
What's retirement going to be like for you, other than maybe keep your foot into health care?
I still want to be involved. I don't play golf, so I don't know what I would do if I was retired. So I have a lot of things to do.
An active retirement.
Yeah, and I don't want to. I can only ride my bike for about an hour in the summer, and so
Well,
I need other things to do.
You've still got one more year, so you're not finished yet. But all the best once 2014 comes to a conclusion. All right. Thank you very much, Representative Tom Huntley. We'll be right back.
Now, let's dig into our news file archive for a look at what was making news 25 years ago this week.
Thank you for using AT&T. Yep.
For Bob Madsen, Christmas is answering about 75 phone calls an hour, patching them through to various points across the world. Bob is one of dozens of AT&T telephone operators working today in Duluth alone, and with Christmas being the busiest holiday of the year, there is little time for mistakes.
Just take a deep breath and go. There isn't much you can do. The calls come in so fast, you just have to just keep on going.
But as hectic as it gets, Bob keeps a holiday reminder right on his computer screen.
I like to draw pictures when I'm making collect calls out of names I get.
A few are even willing to dress the part.
The air is light. Our customers are friendlier. They're saying Happy Christmas and stuff, and people are happy. It's fun helping the people get through to family members and stuff.
AT&T predicts it will have handled more than 47 million long-distance calls today before Christmas is over, a record for holiday calling. Sleigh bells obviously aren't the only bells ringing this holiday season. Julie Zenner, KDLH News.
The 1988 presidential election was memorable for a number of reasons. President Ronald Reagan was ending his second and final term, and a wide-open race was emerging with many Democrat and Republican hopefuls. In the end, it all came down to that vision thing and a man who dreamed of a kinder, gentler nation. Here's a look back at that race 25 years ago and the players who made history.
13 candidates, 7 Democrats and 6 Republicans spent months going to coffees with 10 voters, shaking solitary hands.
Nice to see you.
The first test was Iowa, and so most of them spent a lot of time on the farm. Bob Dole won the caucuses of Iowa Republicans. Pat Robertson, remember, was second. And Richard Gephardt, the Missouri congressman, led the Democrats. It turned out not to matter.
I said this was going to be a marathon, and I'm an old marathoner.
I wanted to do better, but I'm a fighter. I'm going to come back.
What Iowa did was send the Bush campaign into high gear in New Hampshire. A second loss might have ended it. But Dole turned clumsy, trapped by the old New Hampshire no new taxes pledge. Bush was everywhere, including a combative appearance with Dan Rather, in which Bush went on the attack.
It's not fair to judge my whole career by a rehash on Iran. How would you like it if I judged your career by those 7 minutes when you walked off the set in New York?
Well,
now, would you like that?
Bush won the nomination in New Hampshire the way things turned out, and the Democratic field began to thin too.
This candidate is withdrawn.
I got a fair hearing, and the people have decided.
I am today suspending my campaign for the presidency.
I was doing great until I turned 40.
It got down to Michael Dukakis of Massachusetts and the Reverend Jesse Jackson. One-on-one against Jackson, Dukakis won easily.
Asked the vice presidency if I did not get the nomination, my constituency and my leadership has earned consideration to be on that ticket.
He didn't get it. Dukakis, looking for white Southern support, chose Lloyd Bentsen of Texas. Jackson got to make a speech.
We must never surrender. America will get better and better. Keep hope alive.
But that was all.
Keep hope alive.
Still, leaving Atlanta, the Democrats were arm in arm, more unified than 4 years ago, and hopeful. The Republican contest, of course, had ended months before their convention in New Orleans. The only question, who would the running mate be? The answer surprised just about everybody, including a lot of Bush advisors.
Senator Dan Quayle of Indiana.
Quayle got tough questions about his military record and about his academic record, which was undistinguished.
You're going to be surprised on how outraged people and families that identified with National Guard around America are going to be towards these kind of accusations.
But people tend to vote for presidents, not running mates, and Bush launched a fiercely negative campaign against Dukakis.
His revolving door prison policy gave weekend furloughs to first-degree murderers not eligible for parole. America can't afford that risk.
Now, Boston Harbor, the dirtiest harbor in America, will cost residents $6 billion to clean. And Michael Dukakis promises to do for America what he's done for Massachusetts.
Bush never let up on his negative attacks, and Dukakis, strangely, almost never hit back.
Look at the record. That's leadership. Leadership that's on your side. Michael Dukakis for president. Let's take charge of America's future.
The campaign ads were hotter than their two debates. Bush seemed amiable at those, Dukakis smart but cold. But it was the Bentsen-Quayle debate that produced the most remembered exchange.
I have as much experience in the Congress as Jack Kennedy did when he sought the presidency.
I served with Jack Kennedy. I knew Jack Kennedy. Jack Kennedy was a friend of mine. Senator, you're no Jack Kennedy.
That was really uncalled for, Senator.
As the campaign wound down, it was clear Bush's negative ads had worked, and whatever Dukakis thought he was doing hadn't. Dukakis did better than Jimmy Carter in 1980 or Walter Mondale in 1984, but he still lost big. So George Bush waits to take the oath as the 41st president. Michael Dukakis is back being governor. And the Democrats wonder, we elect congressmen and governors, okay? Why can't we ever win the big one? Bruce Morton, CBS News, Washington.
It's time now for the week's business news from Business North. The last ocean-going vessel of the year departed the port of Duluth Superior this week with a load of Durham wheat. The bulk carrier Ursula loaded 22,000 metric tons in Superior before sailing for Italy. It has been an excellent year for the port so far, according to the Duluth Seaway Port Authority. Across the Great Lakes, shipments aboard U.S. flag vessels are up compared with this time in 2012. Iron ore remains the most popular commodity at nearly 40 million net tons. 7 vessels are expected to lay up for the winter at the Twin Ports docks, where they will be maintained and upgraded.
The region soon could see new developments in forest products, but they will not be in traditional paper and lumber sectors. Instead, they will involve the conversion of wood fiber into cellulose fuels and biochemicals. Sappy's mill in Cloquet already has diversified to produce special cellulose that's used in everything from clothing to processed food. And UPM, owner of Blandon Paper in Grand Rapids, also has entered the biochemical market. The company's long-term goal is to make cost-competitive bio-based alternatives to petrochemicals.
A new hotel, the Junction Inn and Suites, is being constructed in Babbitt. The 20-room facility will cost $1.7 million and include a full conference center. The center will seat up to 150 for a banquet and more than 300 for concert events. When completed, it is expected to employ 10 people. The opening is set for June of 2014. For more regional business news, visit businessnorth.com.
Do you have a comment or a holiday wish for our show? Then now is the time to call. Dial 218-788-2849 to leave a message or send an email to almanacnorth@wdse.org. And for the latest information on PBS programming, you can visit the WDSE website. It's also the place to find the latest news and events here at the station. And Denny, I'd like to wish all of our viewers who celebrated a very happy and healthy Christmas.
And Merry Christmas to you, Julie, and to all of you.
All right, and for Denny and the crew here at Almanac North, I'm Julie Zenner. Have a great weekend.